All right, cool. Is this fucking working? Yeah, sweet. All right. I'm finally doing it. I'm making a new video. I'm just going to grab my terrible cheap beer I have. All right. So this whole new idea I have a couple of new ideas. I'm going to start making more videos. This one is talking to a mate. So I'm going to start talking about a story or tell you about when I was talking to a mate. So I'll bring up a subject. This is number one. And usually these stories will be some sort of, chatting to a mate, talking to a mate, right? So I had a couple of beers, talking to a mate. This one was quite interesting. I've been thinking about it. It was about, you've probably seen the whole National Geographic has decided what the average American will look like in 2050 or something, right? So somehow it got up. It was actually, I'll try to give as much context as I can. In Sydney, there's a heat wave. Trains broke down, so my mate brought up how there's cops called, and I said, it's interesting about how once society crumbles, the divisions are very easily shaped. So whether these are like ethnic divisions, racial divisions, religious divisions, or just even a simple division like you're in front of me, you're in the line to get the train, you're in front of me, I now hate you. And it was sort of respond with a bit about the whole, no, we all get along, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it sort of progressed to the point of my mate, as is the segment story, this is how it's going to go, my mate, said something along the lines like, in 1,000 years, we're all going to look the same. In 1,000 years, we'll all look Spanish or we'll all look Middle Eastern or something, we'll all be blended, whatever. And I found that quite confronting. Because to me, that means that there's going to be groups of people who are gone. Like, they're no longer going to exist. Like, does that mean Australian Aboriginals in 1,000 years won't exist? As a group of people, you could just go look at them, whether it's macroscopically, like you visually look at them. Cultural identity, I guess, you can always sort of take on other cultural identities and practice them, but it's not the same as the Japanese people. Will they still exist as a separate group, or will they just be the same? Will they just look the same, and then you have to tell it by how they dress and how they talk and the language they talk? Or can you just look at someone? I mean, you sort of can, you know what I mean? Like, you can look at someone and you can go, they look Japanese, or they look Aboriginal, or they look West Papuan, or they look Scottish or Irish, or the native Inuits of the indigenous folk of Canada. You can sort of, if you got a person from, the far north of Canada, a full Inuit, full native indigenous folk from up there, and they weren't dressed in their traditional style of clothing, and you didn't hear them speak, you just saw a photo of them, just their face. Do you reckon you could maybe pick it? Now, is that a bad thing if in 1,000 years that's gone? Like, I'm just thinking, I'm not coming to a conclusion here and saying we have to preserve ethnic identities or racial identities or cultural identity. I'm not making some. I'm just this is what the segment's about, talking to a mate. So the way you think of this segment, I'm talking to a mate, or maybe I'm the mate you're talking to. And so you take it upon okay, I was talking to a mate about this. That's what I'm starting to think, right? I was talking to a mate, and it made me think that, it sounds all virtuous. It's very virtuous to be like, oh, we'll all be one people, united. We'll all look the same. We'll be the same. We won't have differences. We won't have physical differences anymore. We'll all be the same. And won't that be beautiful? Because we'll all just get along and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And it's a bit like, hang on, man. You're advocating for you're not. You're basically saying in the end game, because that was the whole thing, end game. And so you take the end game of humanity or humans or whatever, and it's sort of you don't really want to remove the individual differences that make us unique, who we are. You don't want to. That's not virtuous to sort of go am I making sense? You feel me? You're talking to a mate, and one of them's like, no, we should all just, like we're all the same, united, we'll all move forward into a better place, and the end game is that we'll end up all looking the same because of interconnections. Like, I mean, one of the little tangents that one of the little, sorry about that, the little thing popped up. One of the little tangents, I guess, is a bit like, we have this interconnected, I don't know if that's the right word, but we're all far more connected now. So, like 200 years ago, I saw this somewhere. 200 years ago, you only married someone within 5 kilometers on average, like, like a walking distance, or something like that. That's where you found your true love and you married and you had kids. And like 100 years ago, 150 years ago, whatever, it became about the bicycle. So once you got the bicycle, you could, that's when communities had, but people were marrying from people further away. And now with like planes and all of that stuff, internet connecting everyone, people are marrying people across the world, all this stuff, right? Which is, not making a comment or judgment on that or anything like that. The point is, end game, 1,000 years from now, 100, what does it matter if it's 1,000 years? What if it's just 10 years or 100 years? Does it really matter what the amount of time is that you put on it? Isn't I guess I'm getting sort of philosophical here. Like, if the point is that we will all be the same and like we'll all be united, isn't that like, you take that, we're all the same, we're all united. Now, if you're going to sit back and let nature do that, you're still by virtue saying that that is the best thing. So like, by virtue, like, I mean, like, if that's if that's the virtue you're searching for, if that's what you're sort of saying, that's good. Okay, that's what you see as good, without bringing in the ends justify the means argument, which I am bringing in the ends justify the means, because you're saying that if the means is that nature does it, that it naturally happens. You're not coercing, forcing, using violence or anything like that. Then that's acceptable and that's good. That's a good virtue. But like, if nature was to decide that the entire Southeast Asian people should just be wiped out by a natural disaster, like on the same level of virtue and what is, oh no, that's the whole point. Talking to a mate. That's what we're doing. So, don't eat me alive. Hope some guys see this. I'm not going to make it too long. Cut it off here at 7.5 minutes. I'll make another one soon. See you around like a rissole. Take it easy. Look after yourselves. Talk again soon. Talking to a mate.